Do you think that instilling meditation in, let's say, Western education could bring us all collectively closer to the infinite possibility of consciousness?
Yes, especially if we started with children. You know, the word education means edu-core. Edu means bring out. Core means what is at the core of a human being. So what is at the core of a human being? Infinite possibilities. And education is bringing that out, not information overload. If I want information overload, I go to Google.
The Earth Locker.
The Earth Locker. Chatting our way to being better Earthlings.
Yeah, but now you sound like a Tesco commercial.
Oh. Welcome to the Earth Locker with Tom,
Rob, and Byron,
where we unlock Earth's best kept secrets and make you feel a little bit better on a daily basis.
That doesn't make it into the jingle. You should hear my text message. Imagine reaching enlightenment.
Okay, so
Yeah, can we turn that off?
we have this guy named Dr. Deepak Chopra, who I've known for 20 plus years, listening to his stuff.
The teachings of.
Why was this interesting and vital, and why was he on our first hit list of guests to have on the
Because I think he's a spiritualist heavyweight. He speaks ancient Sanskrit, the dreamboat. And he's kind of at the forefront of where science is meeting spiritualism. Do you know what I mean? That's what's interesting about it. He's kind of westernizing ancient knowledge of spirituality and kind of trying to find common ground in sort of rationalism. Because, you know, we're every human being who's ever been alive has been conditioned. Do you know what I mean? Conditioned to survival. And at the moment, the kind of accepted Bible of what all of this is the scientific theory of reality. And but the more that quantum physicists explore, the more, like, essentially you take your hand, look through a microscope, then take a piece of it, look less and less, smaller, living tissue, and it essentially becomes 99.99999% space, which on a subatomic level proves without a shadow of a doubt that your body is an illusion that's being perpetuated by your mind. We all live with a body illusion, which is, and there's another thing I wanted to ask Dr. Deepak actually was about out-of-body experiences. Because he was saying that, you know, there's been tons and tons of cases of people who've been approaching death or not in meditation and essentially have separated whatever their awareness is from the perceived solidity of their bodies.
I mean, you know, it's interesting. Like for us, and for me, definitely Deepak Chopra is a name that I would know. And there's a certain audience and spheres of spiritualists and New Agers and self-development people that know him. But there's still so many people that have not a damn clue who the hell this guy is. And for people who don't know, he is a medical doctor that came from India at a time when America was short on surgeons. And,
in the Vietnam War.
And then kind of brought his Eastern philosophy and ways of looking at science, and then somehow transitioned back from a very science medical degree back into the spiritual and kind of understanding and integrating these two worlds. So he's really uniquely positioned to speak on authority about the body, about how we do things, and then internally through his retouching his own roots. His whole stories are amazing. How many books has this guy written?
Well, his new book, Total Meditation, is his 90th book. I was thinking of opening the interview with going, so your 90th book is coming out, Dr. Deepak. Isn't it about time, you know, that you did something with your life? He's extraordinarily prolific. Amazingly prolific. And, you know, they're still making discoveries. Him and a guy called Dr. Neil Thies, who I may have gotten the surname wrong pronunciation, but he's been at the forefront of the discovery of what's likely a new organ in the human body, which is essentially the spaces between organs
and cells,
arteries, veins, cells, everything, which kind of enshrouds everything. But it's a space or a highway that we haven't ever really looked very closely at. But of course, Deepak equates that space between all of the perceived functions of our body as somehow tantamount or in comparison with the spaces between thoughts, spaces between perception, and how ultimately consciousness could be a highway for consciousness, creativity, for everything.
You know, with the Viome stuff, we were told that, or I discovered while looking at that how much of our body is actually DNA and human cells, and you would just naturally assume we're 100% this.
Yeah.
And nothing could be further from the truth.
Nothing could be further than the truth.
20%, less than 10%, 10%, less than 20% is actually DNA. The rest of it's bacteria.
Yeah.
And now with this link you sent me of this doctor and Deepak Chopra talking about this.
Yeah.
Really
About
interesting.
now in between that bacteria and in between the DNA is just space
Yeah,
around all these molecules, around all these things.
in the collagen elasticity of our,
Yeah.
and some of it's even visual to the naked eye. You know,
Yeah. So in reality, we're more nothing than we are something.
we are more nothing potentially than we are something, and I think everything is. But he's also he's very interested in the microbiome, which is something we've waffled on and on about in the old Earth Locker.
Yeah, and he goes on. There's a lot of Ayurvedic medicine links with what he does, and I actually think the way he looks at medicine is the way that the world should be looking at the healthcare. Is that he is, like you say, Byron, like he's taking all those kind of ancient philosophies and the way the mind, body, and soul of Ayurvedic, but then actually utilizing the technology that we have. So combining those two, if everyone was open-minded enough to go, well, let's take all the best bits of that and all the best bits of this, combine them, then you have like the perfect kind of healthcare.
You do.
Which is ultimately preventative.
Yeah, ultimately preventative. And I wanted to fly something up his flagpole. I wanted to say, what about the ancient bacteria in our gut that, you know, they interact with our bodies, they instruct our immune system, they digest our food. They're essentially the wall between the outside and the kind of, they're the gatekeepers into the bloodstream and everything. I was like, could they be the messengers of consciousness? Do you know what I mean? Like, I've had meditative experience, which has been lovely, where you're sat there for a while and then suddenly you start to be kind of visited by very, very vivid scenes and light that seem to be made out of some kind of almost indefinable God energy thing, which is kind of eternal, and it starts flowing up through you, probably through it's called the chakra system in the East, and things that I haven't experienced, definitely, things that are completely like, things that seem to have the spirit of potential, you know, like anything could happen in this strange realm, and I've only just kind of scratched the surface of it. I've had maybe 9 or 10 experiences like that. But it seems like it's coming from the gut, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And those fellas are the same fellas that are feeding the plants in the earth. You know, they've been around since time immemorial, right? But I think he sees it a lot bigger than that. I think he sees it that maybe they could be one emissary, but I don't think they're probably not the answer to everything. Since I've been reading this, I've realized how sort of small my idea is. Yeah.
I mean, Metahuman is a great title. I have not read that book yet, so I'm going to borrow it from you as soon as you're done.
And I think he's probably not that popular because he offers quite a sort of earth-shattering new perception on what reality is, what we are, how we... You know, I think one of the things that's causing the destruction of the planet is this sort of dyed in the hearth idea that probably comes from rationalism, that we are somehow separate to our environment. Do you know what I mean? I think because the way we live, you know, the majority of human beings live in cities where we consider nature to be a thing that's kind of over there. It starts at the agriculture and goes beyond into the hedgerows. Whereas it's a completely stupid idea, because we're breathing the air, we're eating all the food from the earth. We are essentially constantly interacting and contributing to
with our quest,
environment.
The modern industry's quest to conquer nature and take care of humans, we've done major changes in our agriculture. We conquer nature by concreting it over, you know, by growing monocrops. Yeah. And effectively, the more we try to conquer nature, the more we create disease and illness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so, more we create an imbalance. And that's maybe we should talk to Deepak about as well. Like, you know, how modern living, convenience, essentially seems to be destroying us very, very quickly.
Sure. Yeah. And we keep creating it. We keep creating these things that actually, you know, all these things that are supposed to help us. You know, everything that's created, these services that are created, are all things to try and make life easier. And none of them are to actually actively harm us. But ultimately, from the use of it or overuse of these things, they
end up harming us.
And you know, even in I think it's Zen. Again, don't quote me on this, but they see in the philosophy of Zen, they see the great value in having an enemy. You know, and it's not like being at enmity with your enemy, where it's like, oh, I have to destroy their thing and whatever they're doing, it's the worst. It's not Star Wars. It's realizing that you wouldn't feel a sense of wholeness without the opposite. You know, it's this kind of yin yang approach to everything in the universe, and that is essentially realizing the value of your enemy. And I think convenience is an attitude that doesn't put any value in the thing that creates adversity in your life.
Yeah,
you know, it's sort of it just goes, we can conquer this enemy by, you know, doing this. And you go, well, the cosmos is a dual thing. We can't just, you know, we can't just stop suddenly. I can't think of a good example, but like, I think convenience is to be treated with,
well, I mean, has
a modicum of suspicion.
Yeah, convenience has been the battle cry of industry. Everything they do for us is to make life more convenient.
Yeah.
Easier. We kind of talked, listen to that one podcast you sent me about plastics. The Plastic Mermaid was talking about how plastic got introduced during World War II, and you know, to make life convenient for people, to make it easier, and definitely during wartime they can package food. It was lighter. You know, plastic has definitely changed our world, but for the sake of making things more convenient.
Well, I always use that example of
really fucking ourselves.
Yeah,
because we're using it for everything.
Yeah,
I use that example of you know, WALL-E, that the Pixar.
I love that
movie, right?
Which one?
WALL-E. It's about the robot.
Oh, yeah.
And there's all these humans in the future, and it's like a picture of the future of the human race.
Yeah.
And everything's become so convenient that they're all going around in these electronic things.
Yeah.
They're all obese.
Yeah.
They've all got like these iPads that they order their food from. Some of these
Looks
robots
like a
come in.
casino in Florida.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. On steroids, yeah.
And that's the thing is, you know, he talks about unleashing human potential. And there are all these things he refers to as peak experiences in there. Like a woman came up to him at one talk and she was like, I can speak to birds. He goes, well, how do you do that? And she's like, well, it's easier just to show you. So they went outside, sat on a park bench, and by conscious, whatever you want to call it, telepathy, or maybe conscious will, all these birds just started flying down from the trees and sitting in this woman's lap, you know?
Oh my God.
And these are things that we go, wow, that's ridiculous, because we've been on the yoke of convenience, which limits our idea of human potential for so long that we go, well, no, this is the way we live, and we can't do anything beyond this. And we can, and we're constantly demonstrated to that we can do things that far surpasses the convenient life that we've chose to accept.
Yeah.
And he's asking, I think a lot of people don't know who he is because he's trying to show people that and demonstrate to people that...
Well, hold on. A lot of people do know who he is, but not
yeah,
everyone.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true. I mean, him and Oprah did a big thing during the lockdown, didn't they? Which I was talking about on the
I didn't see that. What was that?
It was a 21-day meditation course.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was all about kind of strengthening your resolve, your spiritual resolve and stuff.
That's so important during that time. I mean, that's such a good thing to do.
It's kind of everything, you know, the foundation.
Yeah.
And then how do people be a little bit better with all that? I wonder also, because obviously getting back to ancient wisdom, you've talked about that, was like understanding Aboriginal technology and things that we lost,
dream
cultures.
technology and stuff.
But I also like the whole tech side of it. Like everything we're doing has a dark side. We're constantly being spied on. Every time we open a browser, literally I feel like I can have a conversation with my missus about something, and I will go on my computer.
Yeah, it's there.
How? Please understand.
Surveillance capitalism.
100%. But I hope, at the same token, as we are pushing technology forward, technology, while it might be the bane of our existence, hopefully will be the thing that saves us. We will get to the point.
Yeah.
We'll figure something out.
Is it something to do with that? I'm just trying to think of the technology of how that works. Isn't it something to do with if you've given the app access to your microphone?
Yeah. It can.
Then you've given them the right to listen in on what you're talking about.
And your Google account on the search engine.
Yeah.
And go into all the thing and turn off tons of, marketing preferences.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But do they actually listen to those?
I don't know, This is the thing. Google Chrome is very notorious as well. Google Chrome. And Google Nest, which is a thermostat subsidiary company, where you sign 1,000 clauses just to get a thermostat system put in your house, which basically says we're listening to you inside your house.
Is that also, okay?
I think what meditation's kind of brought me to a place where I realised that putting dark and light moral judgments on things is, to some degree, maybe the husband of the opposite of aware thinking. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there was that parable I was listening to from Alan Watts, and he was saying there's a farmer in a small village, and one day his horse runs away, and everybody else is like, oh, that's shit, your horse is fucked off. And he's like, well, that as may be. And then a few days later, the horse comes back, and it's in tow. It's got 5 or 6 wild horses that's following it. And everyone goes, that's amazing. The horse has not only come back, it's brought like 6 other wild horses you can have. And he goes, that's great. And he goes, well, that as may be. And then a few days later, his son is trying to break one of the wild horses, falls off and breaks his leg. And everyone's like, oh, that's terrible. Your son's leg is broken. He goes, well, that may be. And then the conscription guard of the military comes through the village and is signing everybody up for the draft. He goes, well, you, sir, oh, no, broken leg, you don't have to go off to war. And everyone's like, that's amazing. You're brilliant. Your son has managed to dodge the draft. And he's like, well, that is maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, you applying your sort of moral position on things is perhaps a perspective that keeps you locked in a certain pattern of life. You know? I don't know.
That's interesting.
Alan Watts. Why can't we get him on the show? Well, he's dead.
Yeah. We get him
We can
anyway.
get some recordings of him.
Yeah, we lots of recordings of him.
We'll just edit.
Get some sound bites.
We'll just edit his side of things. Do you agree with me, Alan? Yes.
Yes, I do.
It may be. Maybe we could do that. Yeah, you remember that Woody Allen film, What's Up, Tiger Lily, where he bought the rights to a Japanese spy film, and then just redubbed it to make it completely absurd. So maybe we could do that with a bunch of spiritual leaders.
Definitely do that.
Yeah.
You used to be able to get those. We used to do like calls to mates with sound bites of like Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff.
Yeah,
And
that
you
was like
used to be able to just make a whole
a
conversation.
sensation, doing like prank calls and
Yeah,
stuff.
it was great. Good morning. How are you? I want you to listen to me very carefully.
Let's ask Deepak, has he ever been Arnie pranked on the phone?
Would you like to be?
I bet he knows him.
Yeah, he probably does. Yeah.
Yeah, is
be a-
Arnie into meditation?
He'd be a great... Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'd love to
Arnie's-
get Arnie on. He's my idol.
Yeah.
Is he
well,
really?
We're getting him on.
Yeah, from an acting and inspiration point of view, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah, he's a powerful creature, is Arnie Schwarzenegger.
yeah.
And a really sort of altruistic creature. You know, I follow him on Twitter, and he's always just doing videos of him like feeding some birds and stuff.
Yeah,
and being
yeah.
like, look, isn't life beautiful? But yeah, we should definitely have Arnie Schwarzenegger. We could get him on. You know,
Yeah.
You did a turn in Terminator.
I did do a little turn in Terminator. Yeah,
The movie one of those he was in.
he was in the most recent. Yeah.
Did you meet him?
No, I met his entourage at the breakfast. We literally
Yes.
crossed paths. I finished my last day shooting, and he was arriving in, and I had to get my flight out of there in Budapest.
Bummer.
And I was gutted, yes, they would have been. But although I did find out from Larry, who cut my hair for the movie, he also is Arnie's hairdresser. I found out that he was a magazine, a muscle and fitness magazine that I happened to be in that month. Arnie was reading my article. And Larry texted me going, just so you know, Arnie was reading an article about you this morning.
Oh.
And that made it.
Well, that's the setup. That's the alley-oop for some flirting via a letter, and say,
I should send a letter to Arnie.
"Come on, man. We're
Come on, man.
you know, we're the popular kids on the Netflix
Yeah.
block. For Christ's sake, Harley, you want to remain relevant with the teens, man.
Come on.
We're your portal to that. If you're watching this,
I also want to know what his, because he had this massive change in terms of his food and diet and stuff that he did, because he used to eat an enormous amount of meat when he was like Mr. Olympia.
when he was Conan,
When he was Conan.
when he was punching camels.
And he says now that he feels that you don't actually need to eat that much meat now.
Let's ask Dr. Deepak about his diet.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to know about his diet.
He's like Hershey's, Cheetos.
yeah.
Lots of Red
M&Ms.
Bull helps me meditate.
Cornetto.
Red Bull really gets the meditation
It
fire
gives
up.
me
Really fine Red Bull gives me wings.
Oh, the power of words. What? Yeah. I had a nice meditation experience the other night where I suddenly sprouted a tail made of breath.
What?
Huh?
Yeah, it was really cool.
Wait,
Breast. Breath.
No,
breath.
Oh, breath.
So, wait, so it came out your backside?
Yeah.
So it was just a fart tail?
It was a...
It was your breath out your...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was like a sort of a rope of fart.
you just claimed it's breath.
Yeah.
It's made of breath. But it was
it-
like
it
this gas that came out of my rear end from the tail.
Yeah, it was a fart rope of tail breath that came out. But it was very vivid, and suddenly I had a tail, and I don't know why it was made of breath, but it was.
Were you bouncing around in your dream, or just sitting there in your
was
dream
awake.
meditating? I mean,
Oh, this is
in your meditative
meditation.
state.
Yeah. I was sitting on my bed.
Oh,
Oh my goodness!
Deepak.
Hello, sir. How are you doing? We're speaking across the waves, across time and space, with the delightful dreamboat, Dr. Deepak Chopra.
Hi, how are you guys?
Great.
Very good, sir. How are you doing? Look, we'll set our set up a bit like your set. Look.
Oh, yeah. Oh, very nice.
Nice
So
one.
where are you right now?
I'm about a third the way through.
we're in London right now.
Okay. Well, I'm in San Diego. So
Oh, you're in San Diego. Beautiful.
Lovely.
It's a lovely city.
Are you a fan of surfing? Do you get out and do the surf?
I do a lot of swimming and I do a lot of yoga on the ocean, by the ocean, but not surfing. No, I did scuba dive though.
Oh,
I'm a certified scuba diver.
Really?
Oh, fantastic.
nice.
I like scuba diving. It's like literally going into an alien environment. It's wonderfully trippy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a different kind of biosphere.
Yeah.
So, where do we begin with Dr. Deepak? I've been reading your book, Deepak, and it's been lovely because I've been on a little meditation journey myself, and it's nice to kind of be given very clear, concise, lovely language to describe some of the nice experiences, you know, that I wouldn't otherwise been given the furniture of language for. That's what I think you've great power in doing. You're sort of explaining incredibly complex things simply, which is no easy task.
I don't know if I do it simply, but I do my best. Yes.
Yeah. So, what's your diet like? You know, we're always waffling on about diet and how it connects to mind and moods and ultimately efficiency. And Tom Hopper here to my right is a man whose diet is dialed in to a scientific point where he's
The thing
he's
is,
about to levitate off the ground.
I try to. I've never achieved it. I always think that I think what's really interesting and what you've talked about before, I think, is using the ancient, Ayurvedic techniques and stuff, and mind, body, and spirit, and soul, and then using what we know in technology of now, how to really bring in what we know about the microbiome and the science that's evolving there, and combine the two, and we can actually, by being aware of these things and those ancient practices, create a lovely place to live. It's our vessel that we're in, and we can just take all these things. And I was curious I'd never come across like what your take is on diet and how you see the food you intake into your body, how you see that.
Well, there are many ways to look at diet and nutrition. And if you really understand the significance of diet and nutrition, it's a window in how you can reinvent your body completely and totally. For example, I'm right now chronologically 73. Biologically, I'm in my 30s.
Wow.
And that means if you check my blood pressure, my bone density, my immune system, my hormones, my skin thickness, even the number of wrinkles on my skin, it would correspond to somebody in their late 30s. But I'm biologically there, chronologically, which means when I was born, if you use that information as my age, then I'm 73. But biologically, I'm 37. Now, what's the clue? The clue is that 95% of the genetic information in your body is not human. More than 95% of the genetic information in your body is not human. You have only 25,000 genes that were given to you by your parents. You can't change them. So you got about 12,500 genes from your mother, 12,500 genes from your dad. Together, they create a human being, a human baby. But then when the baby comes out in the world, the baby interacts with the world. And actually, there's a second inoculation of genetic information. And this genetic information is what I would call the planetary microbiome, the entangled planetary genetic information. So if you go, say, 1 inch below the surface of the Amazon forest, or any rainforest, but Amazon is one of the biggest. If you go 1 inch below the surface, you, in 1 teaspoon, will find more genetic information than on the surface of the entire planet, including all the rainforests. So that's where the gold mine is, the gold mine of genetic information. Now, that gold mine of genetic information has been destroyed in the Western world. So if you live in London, I'm sorry to inform you that 30% of your microbiome is missing. That's true of any Western industrialized society where there is industrial food production, in which there is petroleum products, antibiotics, hormones, all kinds of chemicals that are basically inflammatories. They kill this genetic information. 30 to 40% has disappeared. And the remaining genetic information that you have in your body is inflamed. Why is it inflamed? Because of climate change, because of toxins in our food, because of toxins in our environment, because of even mental toxins that inflames the gene expression. So basically, your body right now is inflamed. If you're living in the Western industrial world and you're part of it, your body is inflamed. Inflammation, depression, anxiety go together, and they precede disease, chronic disease, by 2-3 decades. So including Alzheimer's, cancer, everything. 2-3 decades, there is this inflammation, and it's called dysbiosis. Dysbiosis means that your microbiome, the genetic information, is totally inflamed. One of the fastest ways to fix this is through nutrition. So if you eat a plant-based diet, which has maximum diversity. That's where Ayurveda comes in, because Ayurveda includes the 7 colors of the rainbow and the 6 tastes of life. So 7 colors: red, orange, blue, violet, indigo, all of that. Those 7 colors represent all the phytochemicals on our planet. Phyto means light. Phytochemicals, chemicals derived from the energy of the sun, which is the basis of all life, which starts with genetic information and then with plants. Animals eat plants, and human beings eat plants and animals. Ultimately, we're all ingesting phytochemicals that came from the sun. And they are responsible for all the genetic information in the body. So if you go on a maximum diverse plant-based diet with 7 colors of the rainbow and 6 tastes: sweet, sour, salt, bitter, pungent, astringent. Sweet doesn't mean sugar. It means anything that gives you a sweetish kind of taste, like any complex carbohydrates. But between the 7 colors of the rainbow and the 6 tastes, you have all the phytochemicals that brought life to this planet. We can change our genetic information 99% just through diet. And the other 1%, which is human, it's like the human genes that you got, you can't change them. You got them from your parents, and it's like the cards you were dealt when you were born. So you can't change those cards, but you can shuffle them around. And what you can do is you can upgrade the activity of those genes. In other words, 99 point something percent of your genetic information can be changed or upgraded, which means you can reinvent your body. Now, nobody's talking about this, and they should be, because we have now the means to totally reinvent our body. And I'm going out on a limb by saying even reverse our biological age. I don't know how much, but we can reverse biological age. I'm doing it, and invite you to join me as well.
Woohoo! Hey, tell us about the effect of belief on DNA. Something fascinating in your book was the work of Ken Richardson, and how
his belief is an idea that you hold to be true. That's it. And once you hold an idea to be true, it becomes true for you because it influences how you perceive the world. So let me give you an example. If you take a few kittens and you bring them up in a room that has only horizontal stripes, then when these kittens grow up, they can only see a horizontal world. Is the world horizontal or vertical? Well, for these kittens, it is horizontal. That's all they can see. When you look at their brains, when you look at, can I just, when you look at the brains of these cats, so these cats were brought up in a room that had only horizontal stripes. Now they grow up, they can only see a horizontal world because they were programmed in the beginning to see only a horizontal world. Now it's part of their belief. You know, whether they think in English or with an Indian accent, that's irrelevant, but they are sentient beings. They have a mind. And their mind says the world looks horizontal, so it must be horizontal. All they see is a horizontal world. You take another group of kittens, you bring them up in a room that has vertical stripes, they grow up, they see only a vertical world. So is the world vertical or horizontal? Depends on how your brain was programmed. And the brain programming is, of course, genetic. It's through DNA. So the bottom line is you don't see you don't see reality. You only see your beliefs. You see what you believe in because the belief influences perception, and the perception is a result of genetic activity in the brain, which is programmed. So do you see the world as it is, or do you see what you believe? The answer is you only see your beliefs. You do not experience reality. That's the whole point. What is reality? Because everyday reality is a perceptual experience influenced by not only our beliefs, but also our perceptions, our conditioned mind, our economic history, our racial history, our religious history, our ethnic history. It goes back to the beginning of time when people started telling stories. So what you're seeing as the world is your collective story, and even your body is your story. There's no such thing as a body. There's no such thing as a universe. All there is consciousness experiencing perceptions. In our case, it's human perceptions. And human perceptions are amazing because you can see the Milky Way galaxy. You can see other planets. You can see the star-filled sky. You can use technology and see people in London through cyberspace. Right now, we are seeing each other, right? This is the human creativity of the human consciousness, which is extending the range of what we call virtual reality. Your body is part of a VR experience, as is your brain part of a VR experience, as is the universe. The universe, the body, the brain, the mind are a unified activity in consciousness, creating a very convincing hallucination, which we call the body and the world. But there's no such thing. If you say, I have a body, which one? You were a fertilized ovum at one point. Then you were a zygote. Then you were an embryo. Then you were a whatever, fetus. Then you were a baby. Then you were a child. Then you were this. Which body are you talking about? There's no such thing. The body is a changing, intermittent stream of sensations, images, perceptions, and thoughts. You change those, you change the body. You change those, you change your experience of the world. Right now, what we're seeing is the projection of collective insanity. Climate change, eco-destruction, cyber warfare, biological mechanisms for death, nuclear weapons, extinction of species, risking our own extinction. This is insanity. And this is because everybody believes that their ideological framework, whether it's religion or whether it's scientific understanding or whether it is politics, they think they have the right view on reality. But what I'm saying to you, there's no such thing as reality. There's only consciousness projecting an experience which we humans call reality.
Right.
A dolphin has no idea of the unified field theory or the Big Bang or black holes or whatever. Those are human constructs based on human perceptions in a human brain, which itself is a perception. I hope I made the point.
Why do you think, Deepak, we, different corners of the globe, why do we tribally get so sort of invested in our own beliefs to the point where we're willing to blow each other up and, do all that stuff? Is that not part of the human experience as well? I mean, the destruction.
Unfortunately, what we are living in a world with the Bronze Age tribal mind and postmodern capacities, that combination. We haven't changed our story since we were tribal in the Bronze Age. We haven't changed that. Now we have what was called extreme nationalism, which is a sophisticated form of tribalism. Okay, and everybody's, make America great again. Okay, screw the Chinese. It's Russians that are hacking. Well, everybody is acting insane. All our world leaders are gangsters. They're mafia, and we take them to be our leaders. It's about time we took our power back as humans and said, what do we want? And what do we want is a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. It doesn't matter. You're Muslim or you're Jewish or you're Christian. And all these ideological frameworks were based on very profound experiences. Transcendence, the emergence of Platonic values like truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, the loss of the fear of death. This is the religious experience. What happened? We took their experience, we created ideological frameworks, and we went to war. And we are destroying the world in the name of God. It's sanity. So my solution to you and to myself is we cannot depend on anyone. Corporations, governments, world leaders, they're all gangsters. The average person on the planet, all they want is a joyful, energetic body, a loving, compassionate heart, a clear, reflective, inspired mind, and lightness of being or spirit. If we can achieve that, we can change the world.
Yeah.
But we cannot depend on anyone.
Have you had memorable experiences in your life, Deepak, of, say, as you said, profound, religious, glorious, saucy experiences where you found yourself in a great state of harmony and a state of no fear of death?
All the time. I have those experiences all the time.
Oh, that's lovely.
I have to actually remind myself to step out of those experiences to experience the hypnosis of social conditioning and the insanity of the world. So my way of going into that domain is meditating on my physical death and understanding that I don't have a physical body, that I have a light body, that I am a light being, that I am the light of awareness, and that I have bamboozled myself through the superstition of matter. The world is bamboozled by a superstition called matter. There's no such thing. There's only perception, which we interpret as matter. No scientist in the world has discovered a substance called physical matter. What we call physical matter is the interpretation of a species-specific human experience, period. It's a convenient superstition because it allows us to create technology, and now we are using the technology.
That's what Einstein knocked up, innit? It literally dreamed it up, said energy or matter is just energy sort of temporarily in a state, innit?
Yeah, but Einstein was wrong. Einstein was what is called a naive realist.
I'd say you're starting feuds with everyone, Deepak. I'm going to see you in a boxing ring with Donald Trump, then Einstein, and then whoever else is like.
What naive realism is, okay? Naive realism says the philosophy of naive realism, which is the philosophy of most scientists, including Einstein, who was troubled by it, by the way. He was very troubled by his stance. Einstein is known for saying the moon would still be there if no one was looking at it. Well, the natural response is, how do you know?
Yeah.
How do you know it was will still be there if no one is looking?
That's something you said in your book about the Big Bang. Oh, sorry.
Einstein was a naive realist, which means that the world as experienced by the 5 human senses is the only world. Is the only world. So what does the world look like to an insect with 100 eyes? What does the world look like to a dolphin? What does the world look like a bat that experiences the world through the echo of ultrasound? A snake that navigates through infrared? Naive realism says the world would still exist as it exists to the 5 human senses, irrespective of whether anyone was observing it or not. The very fact that you say that means it can't be true, because every species has its own experience of the world. It's not just humans.
How do we enact this glorious consciousness shift en masse, Deepak? How do we do it? I imagine a sort of a Pied Piper of Hamelin situation with you with a flute. And
well, I mean, yeah, that's exactly. I mean, this year has so much has gone on. So much is going on in America. It's an election year.
Yeah. And I can imagine all of that is only serving to potentially suppress, because those stories of division and separation seem to be defining our age en masse to some degree.
I can't tell you whether we can achieve this, but we can only achieve it if we are the change we want to see in the world. Peace can only be created by those who have peace in their heart, not by peace activists or angry peace Nobel Prize winners. I know a lot of Nobel Prize winners, and they're very unpeaceful. They're not at all peace. So why did they get the Nobel Prize? It's politics. Okay? Love can only be created by those who experience love on a daily basis. Peace can only be created by those who are peaceful. So in the words of Mahatma Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr. or Nelson Mandela, we have to be the change we want to see in the world. And if there is a critical mass of that, then the world will change, because the world is an extension of our collective consciousness. So conversations like this, the one we're having, they have an impact. They reach people, and some people say, you know, I want that experience. I want the experience of truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity. I want to be free of the fear of death. I want to experience the transcendent, infinite, divine that I am, not be bamboozled by these ideological and political gangsters.
Which brings us around to your 90th book. I'm going to ask the question that's on all of our lips. Isn't it time you did something with your life? Sorry,
just 90 books.
My new book is how to enjoy living what I call peak experiences all the time. No resistance, no regrets, no anticipation. Enjoy this moment as it is. It's never going to happen again. Never in the history of the universe is this moment that we have. In the entire history of the universe, this will not happen again. So this is your moment.
But so Deepak,
it's in the past.
Do you ever, you know, when you, maybe if your practice slips a little bit, do you ever rehearse conversations in your head? Do you ever do that kind of, do you ever fall back into that sort of, the old hamsters turning too fast on the wheel type?
But I don't try to manipulate the conversation. I just watch it, and then soon I realize how ridiculous it is. Every conversation we have in our head is totally ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, because I suppose it infers some level of control over the
It's
future.
A story. That's what it is. And you've kind of attached yourself to your story. Every story you have has infinite other versions.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about that as well is because we're happening in 2020 right now with what's going on in the world, I think so many people would have really benefited from this way of thinking, because I know so many people that really went to quite a dark place through this whole quarantine isolation period, you know, and like just to be able to turn off that voice, turn off those conversations, because you have them with yourself and
they're reinforced and deepened by the news. I think the global news and the infodemic of doom and gloom, to the point where people tell themselves a very doomed story in their heads about all sorts of things, don't they? And I suppose in your book you talk about awareness being just that step away from being essentially being the observational sort of presence, watching those thoughts go by like passing clouds.
The awareness is the seer. It's what we call I am. And then the body, the mind, and the world are the scenery. Okay, so you are the seer. Now you say, I was once 10 years old. I remember my 21st birthday. I learned how to skate. I learned how to speak the English language. Well, what is that I who learned how to skate, speak the English language, celebrated the 14th birthday, was once a child? We say I. Well, I hasn't changed. I is the same. That's who you are. The mind has changed, the body has changed, the experience of the world has changed, but I hasn't changed. So the seer is the timeless factor in every time-bound changing scenery. You're not the scenery, you're the seer in the midst of the scenery. Even your mind and body are part of the scenery.
And it's sometimes when you walk into a newsagent's and you look at the stand of newspapers, it seems like they're all screaming at you and encouraging you to identify with the scenery as opposed to the I.
That's it.
And I live a fairly stress-free life, thank God. And
body reflects that, by the way.
Oh, good, nice one. I'm sort of exuding cool.
Keep it.
Thank you, Deepak. But but I find suddenly if your eye is caught by all of this sensationalist, like scary stuff on a tabloid, suddenly you feel yourself like internally being sort of dragged to a place of worry and doubt and rampant thought, and it's strange. And
evolutionary biologists tell us that if insects disappeared from our planet, in 5 years, all life would stop on this planet. And what was happening before COVID-19? Bees had disappeared. Bees were disappearing, and bees are responsible for 90% of the nutrition on this planet. Bees, birds, the ecosystem, notwithstanding industrial food production, but insects were disappearing. And if insects disappear, life will stop in 5 years. If humans disappear, life will we'll have the Garden of Eden all over again. So life will flourish if humans disappear. From nature's point of view, insects and viruses and fungi are very important, the genetic information. Corona has existed for 55 million years. Humans have existed for 200,000 years. So who's more important for the ecosystem? Corona or fungi or bacteria or insects or bees or humans? If humans disappear, nature might celebrate. It might say, the humans were a good experiment, it didn't work. Now, because of COVID-19, the bees are back. The birds are singing. Fish are returning to dead lakes. Even the canals of Venice are seeing fish for the first time. You can breathe in Bangalore. You can see the Himalayas from 500 miles away. Also, it's obvious that we can have an oil-free economy. When the price of petroleum falls to less than $1, you know that it's possible. When climate change starts to reverse itself, you know it's possible. So right now is our opportunity to resurrect this world. If we don't do it, then we deserve extinction.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
We do. Why do you, it's so strange, do you think that maybe the fact that we have developed this conscious awareness beyond every other species of animal in our knowledge, has this somehow led... I'm basically asking the question we asked 20, 30 minutes ago, and you were saying we have a kind of a Bronze Age tribal kind of spiritual... with all of the technology of the 21st century at our disposal. And I think Yeah, that's probably... Hey, do you know, I had a sort of a profound meditational experience where I was being visited, I would say, by scenes, light, liquid loveliness that took forms that I could be almost 90 or 99% sure of things that I hadn't experienced, which seemed to be coming directly from my gut, or dare I say it, my sex, or maybe a combination of the two. And then I thought about, because we've been having lovely conversations on this podcast with Naveen Jain and other people who are experts in the microbiome, and how we have these ancient bacteria that are in the earth and stuff in our bellies along the old digestive wall. And do you think that they play a part in our consciousness, or perhaps they could be an emissary of the infinite field of consciousness, you call it? That they could almost be like a consciousness broker when your senses are asleep while you're still awake. That's the most convoluted question I've ever asked.
The short answer is yes, but the long answer is the genetic information is the symbolic representation of the consciousness of all species or sentient beings. Just like the book is a symbolic representation of my thoughts. Mm-hmm. So when you read the book, you're actually looking at symbols, squiggles. Somebody who only understands Swahili, this would be nonsense to them. Okay? So what are genes? They are symbolic representations of the intelligence and the consciousness of sentient beings, whether those sentient beings are plants, animals, microbes, humans, it doesn't matter. And they're entangled. Entangled means they're part of a matrix, and they're projecting collectively the perceptual experience that we call the world. And this is being processed in a non-local consciousness, which is beyond space and time. The book says it, but it's complicated and not people don't understand this. But when we alter symbols, if I altered the symbols in this book, it wouldn't be the same book. Okay? But these symbols also give me a clue to a mind. So when you read Shakespeare, Shakespeare is not in the ink, but it comes through the ink or through the tablet or the computer. But Shakespeare is a consciousness which is not in space-time. Yeah. So yes, the entangled microbiome and everything you said is true, but we don't fully comprehend that experientially. We comprehend that intellectually. That's not good enough. You can know something intellectual, that climate change is bad for us, but so what? Yeah. Unless we experience the reality of it and do something about it, it's just another intellectual masturbation.
Do you think that instilling meditation in, let's say, Western education could bring us all collectively closer to the infinite possibility of consciousness?
Yes, especially if we started with children. You know, the word education means edu-core. Edu means bring out. Core means what is at the core of a human being. So what is at the core of a human being? Infinite possibilities. And education is bringing that out, not information overload. If I want information overload, I go to Google.
Here, how do you write books, mate? I did one the last year and a half, and it was sort of 2 parts fun, and 1 part's painstaking, or maybe the other way around, if I'm being honest. But you've knocked out a fair whack of books, Deepak.
I just ask myself a few questions before I go to sleep, and in the morning I download the answers. That's all.
That's it.
And during sleep, you sort of walk with the giants of the past, present, and future.
Sleep is the smartest mind is in deep sleep, because in deep sleep you have awareness without thought, and the awareness is processing everything. So you can ask yourself any question. In the morning, you'll see you have a clue.
Wow.
I dreamt my dog Rambo last night, who died when I was 22, 23, and we were cuddling.
You know the dream of Lao Tzu, the Chinese philosopher. He says, last night I dreamt I was a butterfly. This morning I'm confused. Am I a butterfly who dreamt that he's a philosopher, or am I a philosopher dreaming I'm a butterfly?
Ooh, and especially if he had the experience of the painted lady, like in your book, where it said that The painted lady tastes through their feet, hears through their wings, and essentially experiences reality altogether different to us.
Smells the world through its antenna and sees the world through 30,000 lenses. So what is reality to the painted lady?
Yeah, it's a completely different kettle of fish.
Yeah. So Deepak, your latest book, Total Meditation, why is this the book that you're actually focused on meditation, yet everyone in your books talks about it? What's different about this book? Like 15 minutes every day, what do we have to do?
To stay in that space all the time. All it really involves, you stop, you take a pause, you notice the sensations in your body, what's happening in the body, in the mind, in emotions, and then you choose the right moment to upgrade those sensations so you can stay in the place where you always enjoy a joyful, energetic body, loving, compassionate heart, reflective, alert mind, and lightness of being. Now, if you enjoy that all the time, you'd be all set, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would. Yeah. What about Alan Watts? He says, like, the apple tree apples, like the earth peoples. You know, I suppose
100% right. Alan Watts was one of the most brilliant philosophers, thinkers, sages of the century, and was before his time, unfortunately. Right now, he's even more relevant than he was during his lifetime.
Yeah. And what a voice, too. I listen to his lovely velvety voice before bedtime sometimes.
Yeah, he was fantastic. What a great sense of humor, too.
Yeah, he's always making himself proper belly laugh. It's lovely. Yeah. Like the lovely Gabriella Wright, who we're going to have on after you, Deepak. Me and her had a chat the other night, and we were both belly laughing throughout.
Campaign with Gabriella Wright to create a better world.
Yeah, tell us about neveralone.love and how you're using the technology of blockchaining to surpass those gangster governments.
That's right. So neveralone.love is a platform for three things, basically: service, higher calling, and spiritual practice. And in the Buddhist tradition, we say, take refuge in the Dharma, which means in higher purpose. Take refuge in the Buddha, which means higher consciousness. And take refuge in the Sangha, which means the community. So we are creating global communities, both online and offline, where people never feel alone. They feel supported emotionally, through attention, through affection, through appreciation, through acceptance. But we also create resources for them to make a decent living, to consult with counselors. That's where blockchain technology comes in. It's totally transparent. I believe in emergence, and I think blockchain is the emergent technology that will help us decrease suicide in the world, improve mental hygiene, and create a better world, because blockchain is totally traceable, trackable. It's an open forum. It's transparent. It's open to feedback. And, I believe if we have shared vision, if we have maximum diversity of people who care and people who want to support each other, we can change the world. And that's what Never Alone is going to do. And Gabriella is one of our stars.
Yeah, of the movie too, because the movement, didn't you guys create a movie?
Started, by the way.
What's that? Sorry, Deepak?
That's how it started. We wanted to support Gabriella's movie, and then we saw that the movie is an opportunity to expand this conversation.
All right. So tell us, like, let's say a mental health worker, be they a psychologist or a nurse or whatever, can essentially contribute content onto a blockchain verified platform. Correct. And be remunerated for it. So and obviously,
even with cryptocurrency, we can create our own currency. So the blockchain therapist can be remunerated, and the person who consults can also have the ability to pay them because they are contributing to the conversation and sharing best practices.
Wow.
So I think this is a revolution with blockchain, cryptocurrency, shared vision, open platforms, and feedback, and AI, because right now we are also talking to people with AI, where the AI can immediately identify somebody at risk and immediately identify 3,000 to 5,000 counselors in your area that can help you.
Right.
So we do
Wow.
the whole thing.
Oh, so that's what I was wondering. Like, is there the absence of the human touch? You know, if you're seeking therapy through a computer all the time, but if there's a network of connecting counselors to people, so that, you know, because loneliness, like in Ireland, the EU have decreed in Ireland that you cannot now drink of alcohol and drive on the road. That's it. And you know, most of Ireland is a rural country, and there isn't public transport, and some of the kind of life linkages of farmers and stuff down the country is the pub, 5 or 10 miles down the road. And that's their community. But now they can't do that anymore. And so anxiety and loneliness, unfortunately, is a growing problem in rural Ireland. And I thought about the blockchain Never Alone platform. And I was like, well, I suppose it's hard to cure the woe of loneliness just with an outreach through a computer. But if there are, as you say, counselors, people, if you're willing to look for help, then there's people near you.
And by the way, physical social distancing doesn't mean loss of intimacy. People can be intimate even though they are physically distant by giving each other attention, which means deep listening, appreciation, noticing the gift they have, acceptance, not trying to change them, and affection, telling them you love them and you care for them. I can give anybody a dopamine hit just by sending them an emoticon in Kenya from Los Angeles. So right now we should think of the internet as our collective global brain, which is what it is.
Yeah.
And we are rewiring it through these technologies, including blockchain. And when the weather gets better and the climate change reverses itself, we'll go out there. Humans are meant to engage physical also intimacy, and it's not going to go away. Intimacy is solitude and loneliness are two different things. You can be in solitude and connected to the entire world, and you can be with the entire world and be lonely at the same time. So it's a shift in consciousness is more important than the physical expressions of what we call loneliness, solitude, or being in the crowd. You can be in the crowd and you can be totally lonely, and you can be alone and totally connected.
Yeah. How about you, how about you, Deepak? Did you ever yearn to go back on a more permanent basis to India? I know you came over to the US in like 1971, 72.
India produced a lot of luminaries, but right now it's just like the rest of the world. You know, so I actually have lost confidence in political institutions. I feel that every country has given luminaries to the world. India gave luminaries to the world, but so did the Chinese philosophers. So did this biblical prophets. So did the Greek philosophers. I don't think
Ireland gave a few as well.
Say that again?
Ireland gave a few as well. Do you know what I mean?
Ireland gave us poets, philosophers, writers, entertainers, songwriters. Ireland is an amazing country. Whenever I go to Dublin, the first thing I see in the airport is artists.
Yeah, it's lovely. I'm always trying to get my face up there, Deepak, but they won't listen to me. I know, I'm not really joking.
Well, if you go to Ireland and don't pay taxes, they'll put your face up there.
Like Google.
Yeah.
I mean, question for you, because obviously we're young. I'm young. I personally have done a lot of psychedelic drugs since I was a young teenager. And I've also done a lot of meditation and been involved with the church and then subcultures. I have always hard to value. Our psychedelic drugs have taught me so much. They're a lot of fun, but then so is meditation. Is there value? Is there one better than the other, or does everyone just have to walk their path? What do you feel on this?
Well, I tried LSD when I was 17 and as a medical student for the first time. And then I tried it again as a medical student. And I've also tried ayahuasca. And here is what my take is. Psychedelic drugs, they suppress a part of the brain called the default mode network. I don't know if you know about that. Default mode network. It's a part of the brain which is the biological correlate of your ego. So when you take psychedelic drugs, that default mode network, otherwise known as DFN, it gets deactivated. So it gets your ego out of the way and you suddenly feel connected to all there is. And that's the experience with psychedelics. But if the dose is not right, if it's too much or too little, if it's not supervised, it can cause all kinds of problems. People have what they call bad trips. Some people have psychosis. So psychedelic drugs are now being looked at today, including ayahuasca, ketamine, and many others, mushrooms, magic mushrooms, psilocybin, as a way to handle depression, existential anxiety, suicide, and they're working. But what I maintain is they're good under a supervised therapist or a shaman who knows what they're doing. Otherwise, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
Also, once you get into meditation, you recognize, as I did, that I could have the experience without taking the drugs. So I have them in years, but I have a total understanding of how they help under proper conditions.
Hey, tell us, Deepak, about the work you've been doing with Dr. Neil, and his last name I'm going to butcher, Dr. Neil Thies, and the discoveries of what's being called a new organ in the human body have been discovered recently. That's incredibly exciting. And the correlation you see between the sort of spaces between perceptions and thoughts and the space in our bodies that kind of enshroud all of our organs.
So Neil Thies is a very interesting biologist. He was the first one to show stem cells in the circulation. People before that thought stem cells are only in the bone marrow. But now he discovered them in the circulation, which means in the future, we'll be able to take cells from the blood and maybe clone a version of you or replace an replace an organ. You could take a stem cell from the circulation and do replace your liver, for example, by differentiating it into liver cells. So he was the first one to discover stem cells in the circulation. Now he's discovered a new system in the body called the interstitium, which connects all the spaces in the body with each other. The space between cells, the space in the cell between organelles, all the spaces. And what I was suggesting to him, ultimately, that's all there is space. Its space is modifying itself into boundaries, and this may be a clue to a bigger reality. But Neil Thies is a brilliant scientist. I hope he continues maintaining his brilliant science and his reputation, which is in jeopardy because he's hanging out with Deepak Chopra.
Oh God, that's us now too. But tell us this.
Not jeopardy, but these academics, they're in jeopardy if they hang out with me.
Good, makes them edgy. You should give them a maverick vibe.
Used by a lot of scientists of what they call pseudo-profound bullshit.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Hey, but it's on the subject of pseudo-profound bullshit. Why do you think it gets excited into material form? Do you think that there's some reason, some intent in this infinite consciousness in order for us to have arrived in this state that we're in?
If consciousness is infinite, then it needs to express itself in infinite experiences. That's it. The purpose of consciousness is to be conscious of experience, period. And it does that through maximum diversity, from the divine to the diabolical, from the sacred to the profane, from the sinner to the saint. It's all part of the ecosystem, from microbes and fungi to bacteria and COVID, to the most exalted seers and Jesus Christ and Buddha. It's all part of infinite, diverse expression and maximum creativity. And if you ask me why, I would say, I don't know.
Oh, Deepak, will you be our spiritual uncle? And next time you do one of these meditation retreats, can I come on it?
Let's do it. Let's do it together for the world through you.
Yeah,
I would love that.
Great.
I'd really love that. Really and truly.
I mean, this has been an absolute
quite the treat.
This one's going to require a few rewatches by our viewers/listeners.
us a link, we can put it on our YouTube channel and other channels. We reach 15 million people every day. So if you send this to me, I can put it on social media and also link back to you.
That would be great.
God bless.
We'll do this. There's got to be a way that we can get everyone to get out of their hamster wheels and make some real changes.
Absolutely.
We're quantum entangled now, Deepak. You're going to regret this terribly.
Entangled, but what we need right now is to fix the planetary entanglement of our genetic information, which is the basis of life on this planet.
Amen.
Too true.
Well, we shall get on that. Deepak, it's been a great honor and a privilege.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I really enjoyed. Say hi to Gabriella Wright for me.
I
We will do.
I will
Take
indeed.
care. Bye-bye.
Loads of love, man.
bless.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wow.
Talk about, perception of time, and how time is a sort of a secretion of consciousness. That hour felt like 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it an hour?
Yeah,
It was an hour. Yeah.
And normally we have so much jibba jabba when we're talking to certain people.
Yeah.
Well,
Just hanging on his words.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, he spoke so brilliantly about...
That's why, he's speaking like he's writing the book.
Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing, that takes a few redrafts, a few edits in a normal mind. But he's just...
Well, like you said at the top, like he speaks about such profound things with such clarity and makes it sound, so easy to understand.
Yeah, and gives people a viable alternative,
Yeah.
Because I suppose the world of as a pseudo profound bullshit, as Deepak calls it, there is sacred in it, like Deepak, but there's a lot of profane, and there's I think things sometimes negate purchase. People are trying to look for an alternative way of reality and a consciousness shift, but when someone lays it out in such a simple and somewhat pragmatic way, I mean, he's. You can tell he's a medical doctor.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a fire in what he's saying.
Yeah,
yeah.
he's
A call
a
to action.
fiery pragmatist spiritualist.
He's
all the
of them.
Power Rangers rolled into one.
He
He's
is.
he's the Megazord.
He's the
man.
Megazord.
He's the
Power Rangers
Megazord.
are different colors, which makes them Ayurvedic.
Yeah, there you go.
Ah,
Yes,
I'm onto something.
He's the
Power Rangers.
He's the Megazord.
he's the Megazord. He's all the delightful tastes. What did he say? What was all the colors of the rainbow and
yeah.
the tastes of the
Sweet, salty,
the palate.
sours. Yeah, the Ayurvedic diet.
Yeah.
Thing.
I mean, it's a good way to analogize Deepak.
Yeah.
Because he does possess a lot of different human traits and skills that he's sort of bringing together.
Yeah. Do you think that's what meditation can do? Do you reckon that's how powerful it can be to bring all those, because you go into such these deep meditative states that you can start to bring in all those aspects to your life
I think
action them.
Divides between certain things fall away. I mean, like me waffling quite frivolously about having a tail made of breath, which is true that I did feel that very profoundly, but I suppose it just takes all of the stuff, all of the preconceived notions, and just sort of and barriers fall away and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's very, very nice.
I mean, obviously, I asked the question about psychedelics because I love psychedelics, but I also 100% agree with him because I've also discovered that I don't do them that often. I've meditated. I'm older. It was fun, and then it was prophetic. And he's absolutely right. You get the same thing from just being present. It's
And Alan Watts described psychedelics like a loaded gun. It's a very, very dangerous thing that you're dealing with, and you have to be sure that it's a blank in the chamber or whatever. You know what I mean? You have to be very safe and assured of what you're doing. And I think if you go back time and time and time and time again, you're increasing your chances of oblivion. Disaster. By
When is that poses the question? When is the right time to do it then for people? For the average person, when is the right time?
I don't know if there is one. I think it's completely subjective.
everyone's
like
journey.
the whole universe.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, without question, we've all been young and partied, and you want to get out of your skin a little bit. So it's either drinking, it's smoking, it's whatever.
And it's funny you should ask that because I've never done LSD. I've taken mushrooms, but I've never done LSD. But I have a very, very trusted compadre who knows all about it, and we're going climbing a mountain quite soon. And then after that, we're going to take LS fucking D, which I've never done. So I shall report.
Yeah,
I shall report back.
We'll do a post-mountain
And you see, this
LSD
is
trip podcast.
yeah, and this is when the old "you have an acting career" voice comes in, because it's the old ego keeping everything separate. Going, no, this is the podcast thing, but you don't do anything here to jeopardize that, you know.
Yeah.
And that's that unconscious ego voice thing that comes in all the time, and essentially is trying to take care of my survival. You know, that's really what it's doing.
Yeah, but you know, it's such a different thing that you're talking about right there. You're talking about having a journey, being with people who are experienced, and that's kind of the time and place and the context. You know, getting high because you fucking hate your life is the wrong fucking reason to get high on anything. Yeah, you know, like true. I mean, in the industry I'm in, everyone's doing cocaine left, right, and center. I don't like coke; it does nothing for me. Whatever, people do it. You know, I try not to judge, but it's boring, you know? And
I do find that cocaine is one of those ones, I mean, I can't talk because I've never taken it, but I've witnessed a lot of people on it on nights out and stuff. And the thing with cocaine, it always seems like they're always chasing that. There's just this desire to keep doing it to not go back into what they are, because they're trying to chase
the
that
opiate
first.
tail, the opiate
they're trying to chase that.
But you know, I 100% think if your journey calls you to that, take it seriously, to do a psychedelic or something of that nature.
Yeah, and give it the respect.
And give it a bit of respect.
Treat it sacred.
Yeah,
you know,
and you'll get so much more out of it.
Yeah. It was like I was in Bali and there was a beautiful artesian fountain coming out of the 7 different stone statues into a fountain from different chakras on the and it was beautiful, and the water was about this, and I was with this Hindu priest guy, and he was showing me around this temple called Goa Gaja, and he goes, "This water is to sort of commemorate a transition, a meaningful transition in your life, and so when you go in there, you know, wash yourself, you know, splish it around, feel it, be with the water, which is a type of flexible energy, and then make a change, you know, make a conscious change." And it was, I think it was just that, it was the kind of externalization of the internal, which you'd call ritual, I suppose, made it an incredibly powerful experience for me. Yeah. And it was funny, I came out then of the fountain, and there were these American and Italian tourists, and they were like splashing through the fountain. They had their arms around the statues like this. They're like, get the picture, and I was like, what do you think of these guys, Gede? I mean, they're just stomping through. They'd have no understanding of what the meaning of this is. And he goes, that's just them. You know, they exist.
They're doing their thing,
and it's up to you whether you want to take a position on it or not. Yeah. And I went, "Oh yeah,
stop judging your environment, right?
Yeah, stop passing judgment on everything. It's not your place really to do it, or it is, but it's just you're going to get locked in a kind of a pattern.
I think also that whole chasing that high kind of thing. I don't know why I was thinking about this, but I was having a conversation with somebody else who's in a bad breakup, and they were kind of upset and like, oh, you know, the passion, whatever, why did it fall off and blah, blah, blah.
The what?
Why did the passion fall off? It was such a passionate romance. It was kind of going all great, and then suddenly it just stops. And what did we do wrong? And then I just think about the relationships I have, and Tom, I'm sure you must relate to this. I mean, obviously there's like that deep sexual passion between people when they first meet. But on more than one occasion with my partner, with Amanda, like deeply passionate moments just on the couch, seeing her, my kid, and just like,
being present,
you know,
yeah.
And it's really kind of taking that whole judgment of how the world said shit should be, you know, and putting values on something really simple.
You get new highs in relationships. I think like the high from the beginning of a relationship where it's like, oh, well, that passion is like you say, it transcends. It turns into something else.
Yeah, and it's as a result of you being there and being being the architect of your reality, and not the reality being the architect of you. You know?
Also, let me get this straight. 100% that is not all the time. We drive each other crazy most of the time. But occasionally we have those moments that are absolutely lovely.
Yeah. Monogamy, eh?
Hey, you should try it someday.
It's a strange island full of killer creatures. On that note, Earthlocker friends, why don't we jingle it out? I'm buzzing after Deepak.
That's a good one.
That was amazing. Thank you, everyone.
I should have demanded that when I meet him, he do an inscription on my book.
I mean, this is his latest book. His new book will be coming out shortly.
Yeah.
Complete Meditation.
Yeah, Total Meditation is his new book. And I think just talking about this, like essentially enacting a consciousness shift en masse, which I think happens with the young, doesn't it? If we could kind of find a course of meditation we all agree on, which is secular, it's non-religious, you know, so you're not introducing some ideology into schools. No, you're just going, well, this is like PE for the brain.
What he said about education to bring out your core. I've never heard. I don't know why I've never heard that. Have you heard that?
Yeah, he's a spiritual Shakespeare, baby.
That's brilliant. Because that is what education should be. It shouldn't be about just like trying to force information into kids. Yeah. It's about bringing the best of the person out.
And an education system would argue, well, emotional intelligence isn't our jurisdiction. But I would say by overloading children with academic bullshit in order to pass your exam, you are starving them of the possibility of having any emotional fucking intelligence. Because they're spending all their time studying for your, frankly, mostly futile exams.
Dun, dun, dun. On that note, like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
And support people. I'm being creative.
And don't trust those gangster governments. Deepak Chopra.
So many gangsters.
Woohoo! This is cause for celebration, boys.
Yeah.
Great celebration.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
All right.
Woo.
The Earthlocker is produced by Byron Knight. Edited by Luna Wolf of DisturbiaFilms.com. Director of Photography, Christopher Assoff. Technical assistance by the multi-talented Storm Stewart. With big thanks for technical support from Cheat London, coloring, finishing, post-production, cheatit.co, and The Flow State Productions.
Listen, lads, the Earthlocker podcast is opinions of the host and of the guests, and it's not Bible, it's not fact, it's just a platform for sharing ideas, right? And all the content of this podcast is solely owned by us, that's right! And copyrights reserved by the Earthlocker. The content here should not be taken as medical or financial or psychological or spiritual or bestial advice. The whole point of this podcast was to bring people who spent their lives studying something on to share with us what they know, you know, and then essentially improve planet Earth. So the show's for informational purposes. It's for sharing ideas, having a laugh, and because each person is so unique and so saucy, you got to consult your own doctor for any medical questions. You got to talk to your financial advisor if you're a big shot on Wall Street. And if you wish to invest in this podcast, we will take any size investment. Down to 20 pence, anything you have, any spare change. And so speak with your elders about personal and spiritual matters. They know shit. They've lived it. You know, all of us slightly younger crowd, we're just riffing. We're just pretending we know. The content of this podcast might have settled during transport and batteries are not included.